If 12 erased years are enough to explain Daniel Molloy 37 years after Devil's Minion, then the 21st years of his life are just as important. In 1973, Daniel is not a brilliant journalist. He's a junkie. He's broke, he has no job, he has no purpose in life, he goes from bar to bar looking for drugs and to make sense of his life. But people don't just end up in that sort of situation. So what happened to him? Hi, I'm Tess, and today I want to talk a little bit about Daniel and his origins because I feel like they can help us understand the character. He's a very complex character. So my questions would be, what kind of a childhood does somebody have to have in order to end up in San Francisco like he does? And what details of his youth can be used to explain both him in his 20s and when he's 70? Modesto is a real place. I've done my research. It's in Central Valley, California. And in the 1970s, it wasn't a slum, but it wasn't a luxury place either. It was like lower middle class, functional neighborhoods, quiet streets. It screams monotony and routine. The show doesn't portray Daniel's childhood, but Armand does talk about it enough for us to pick some things up.
A woman in the mold of your mother, vacuuming on Valium. A genteel drinking problem like your father.
Right, so medicated mother, alcoholic father. That is enough to suggest that his addictions may have a genetic compound to them. But let's dig a little deeper than that. To me, what the show is implying here is that Daniel's first role models were a mediocre breadwinner defined by emotional distance and a weak, barely there mother. And that is important because it constructs how Daniel sees both himself and the woman around him. Besides this, the scene Armand paints for us is kind of zombie land, a place where there's no actual abuse, but no one's really alive, and there's no connection. So Daniel learns from very early that if he cannot connect, at least he can observe, he can analyze. That begins to build the reporter inside him.
In middle school, you stole your dad's Playboy magazines, sold them at recess. A little dirty, a little deceitful, but it's enterprising. Is that what makes you fascinating?
What is interesting to me about this anecdote is not that Daniel goes and sells the Playboys. Okay, that too. But what I focused on is the fact that his dad consumes porn so much and with so little shame that he basically leaves them there for Daniel to find. And there's so many of them that he can just take a bunch of them and sell them at recess without fear of being caught. Also, this relates to what Armand will say later on.
Your wife counting down your thrusts.
Daniel learns that sex isn't intimate, but exchangeable. Kid that he is, he, instead of hiding it, decides to monetize. This also speaks of a journalistic mind, someone who is able to detach themselves from an upsetting situation such as, my dad would rather look at this porn than at my mom, and make the best out of it, sell the information so that you can obtain something. But there's a moment where we're no longer talking about learning. We're talking about choices.
In high school, you told a girl you'd only do her if she had a paper bag over her head. She agreed, and you did it even as she cried. A splinter of coldness in you. Is that what makes you fascinating?
This is a show about vampires who are serial killers. But Daniel keeps pace. What he does here is despicable. It's not a splinter of coldness. It's a whole fucking block.
And then what?
Putting my own feelings aside, this reinforces what we've already seen. Clear objectification of women, which will later explain his terrible relationships with both his wives and his daughters. An objectification of sex itself and himself as a person, which will later develop into selling his body for drugs. And a tendency to prioritize impulse over empathy. In this case, the impulse is sexual pleasure, but I'm talking in a broader sense. He doesn't lack empathy. He just chooses to ignore it when it works for him. He has a pretty clear set of moral priorities.
Sidestep the big picture. Get the story straight first.
The story comes first, and that is clearly an excuse of his own selfish desires because, as Armand points out,
He wants you in pieces for the privilege of putting them back together as he sees fit.
It's his job.
It's his drug.
a clear example of this is when Lou is talking about Claudia's abuse, and he tries to dig through that because the story behind Claudia's abuse is more important than the actual event and suffering that she went through.
It's clear what happened.
And she wrote about it, and I'd like to read it. Let's see. Bruce walked back from the fire and leaned down over me and torn out pages.
If I were to dig a little deeper into this, I would also say that there's a lot of, I don't know how to say this word, okay? But I think it's compartmentalization. He's someone who is able to keep doing things that feel wrong in order to chase that high. So he can detach himself from the hurt or the horror or the pain or the suffering or another human being in search of drugs, his own immortality, or a good story. This is also why he's able to keep asking questions when his life is in mortal danger.
Mind if I ask a few follow-up questions? There's just some things I've been jotting down along the way.
So cruelty and talent come from the same mechanism for Daniel. That is the core of the character. I'm not saying that he's a horrible psychopath, but I am saying that he's a bad person.
What do you want, Daniel?
I'm worried about you.
You become a cold killer.
It's okay. This is a show about serial killers. It makes sense that Daniel and Armand were meant to be together in Endgame because they're both pretty bad people. Yes, they have suffered and we can explain their actions, but that doesn't excuse them. They're people who are very selfish and pursue their own desires and talk about a greater good in order to excuse their actions. For Daniel, it's a thirst of knowledge, while for Armand, it's a battle against loneliness. Now let's get back to 1973. What made Daniel leave Modesto in order to go to San Francisco? The fear of mediocrity, right? Well, I think that that same fear is the one that will push him to go to Dubai in 2020. Eric Bogosian has talked about sharing some life experiences with Daniel. This is not to say, of course, that the actor and the character are the same person, especially after having said that Daniel is such a horrible person. What I mean is that they seem to share that same American tension, that stability versus meaning. There's a play called Suburbia, written by Eric, that follows young people in their 20s. It focuses on themes like lack of motivation, feeling stuck, and I think it was in the Washington Post that Eric once said that this relates directly to his own life experiences in his hometown. Much of his writing kind of circles around that, the emptiness behind the American dream.
I know I'm not a nice guy. I know you all hate me, but I don't care, because at least I realize I'm a shit. And for that tiny fragment of truth, I respect myself. That's why normalcy is so far to my reach, because you have to be blind to be normal. You have to like yourself. The thought of that is so repellent to me that I'm ecstatic to be in the depressing place that I'm in.
And I think that all of this can work for Daniel as well. The duplex in Modesto isn't just Armand's manipulation. It's Daniel's personal nightmare. He doesn't want to die, but he would rather die than become like his parents. And then he goes and does the same thing to his daughters. Daniel. A few more details about the character that I find interesting. His macho personality, how he moves in Dubai and in San Francisco are pretty different, even though Luke Brandonfield kind of mimetized with Eric. What I'm trying to say is that younger Daniel is kind of a twink. While the older version of him is much more prone to manspread, talk with abrasiveness,
Yeah?
Yeah.
deny any kind of same-sex attraction because the gay bar is just a good place to score. He's very good at either pretending not to be gay or it's not a big deal to him. It's not a part of his personality. It's just something he does because it's pleasurable. Maybe after the encounter with Louis, he decided to hide that part of himself. That's just one thing I wanted to say.
So automatically, radically, ironically,
Alice is in her third trimester.
Another one is that in case anyone feels like I don't like the character, that couldn't be farther from the truth. He's basically my favorite character. Armand and him kind of compete for that place. But I also understand that he's not some poor, innocent boy, just as I understand that he's not a raging psychopath. He's the result of both an emotionally dead childhood and his own personal choices. But that is what makes him such a great character, because nobody likes two-dimensional characters. So, to sum up, Daniel didn't end up in San Francisco in 1973 by accident. he was running. Not from a monster, not from a single traumatic event. He's always been someone who will choose intensity over anesthesia, danger over repetition, and truth over comfort. Those are the basis of the character. And it makes him capable of great cruelty, but it's also what makes him able to survive vampirism and vampires. And now we'll have to see whether if it's good or bad for him in season 3.
You and Louis talking again?
That's it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.